Welcome to Hip Hop Now Podcast. If you're from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here. Don't disrespect the legend. Hip hop is here to stay. Let's get right into the business. What up, y'all? I'm Vegas. And this is Hip Hop Now Podcast, a podcast specifically designed to keep you caught up on all things hip hop music and culture that happened throughout the week. Big shout out to the Patreon supporters over at patreon.com/hiphopnow. And if you would like to learn more about that, well, click the link to my Patreon, which is in the description of this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, it's down there. If you're listening, it might be on another page. I don't know which app you're using, but you know how it'll get down. 50 years of hip hop. I did a best of 2023. If you missed it, I gave you 10 projects that I thought you can't go wrong with as far as variety and dopeness in hip hop for the year 2023. And then I gave you my top 5. The top 5 albums that I listened to the most, that stuck with me the most for various reasons. I go through it and all that good stuff. So check that out. That'll be linked in the description, but also linked at the end of this video so you can check it out, because you will realize that it is not all about hate. But this episode is sort of, kind of. So let's get right into the business. 2023 was an odd year. And in a lot of ways, disappointing for 50 years of hip hop as far as new releases. I thought a lot of artists would use this as an opportunity to just bombard us hip hop fans in the world with highly anticipated projects, surprise projects, dope projects, and all that stuff. And in a lot of ways, it had moments. It just didn't pan out that way, right? The music wasn't as good as it's been in past years. So, in keeping with that theme, keeping with the do-rag and the hoodie, this time a hat that has ears on it, we are going to do my top 5 most disappointed albums of 2023. And let me just say what that is. What does that mean, disappointed, right? It doesn't mean whack. It just means it did not meet my personal expectations. That's it. My expectations were set by these artists and their catalogs, their previous catalog. In a lot of ways, it was set by the hype that surrounded the release of these projects. And when I got to them, I was just kind of like, this is just mid. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. This isn't, and it's tough to say that, right? Because I don't know, right? You hear one song or whatever, or MC has a track record and, you go off that track record. So you kind of hype like he don't disappoint, she don't disappoint, whoever. And then you get it and you're trying. See, that's the part about the disappointment part. It's not me pressing play and saying, oh, this ain't good. It's me pressing play and trying to find it to be one of the best of the year. And then ultimately having to come to grips with the reality of it's just not what you thought it would be. Now, is it the worst? No. To me, none of these albums, well, except for one, I'm going to save at the end, are like really bad, like just terrible. It's not the worst or the wackiest, but it's pretty close. It's cool. It's decent. Some people will like it. Some people don't. Some people will have some of these albums in their top 5 of the year. That's cool because it's all subjective. So this is my top 5 most disappointed albums of 2023. Hip hop albums. First up, Westside Gunn and then pray for me. Look, man, I'm a known Conway the Machine fan, just lyrically. Same thing with Benny the Butcher. West Side Gun grew on me, and I realized that I liked him for a very different reason than the others, right? It was the aesthetic, his voice, the art, the artwork, right? The curation of the beats and the artists and stuff like that. And often he has succeeded. So when Pray for Paris dropped, right, back when, um, I was like, that joint kind of grew on me. I was like, oh, I kind of like this. So when he had a sequel, and then You Pray for Me, I was like, well, I mean, why not? And he's pretty good at hyping things up, trying to really do like a guerrilla style promotional campaign, dressing the part with all this fashion. I like the aesthetics of what he presents. You know what I'm saying? It's not just the music, it's everything surrounding the music and his personality as well. But this ain't it. This was one of those where I was just like, no, almost. Oh, that one's crazy. The next one, I heard this before. Like it was a lot of that. You know what I'm saying? And in a lot of ways, just to be fair, even though this is the naughty list, we are spoiled with hip hop today because West Side Gun has released enough albums to just straight up retire. Once upon a time, most rappers didn't have this many albums at all, right? Or you had to be in it for decades, like Too Short and E40 and LL or whatever. And now, the Nas's and everybody else. And this dude and his crew have really only been like in the public view as far as the casuals um, for maybe half that, maybe 5 years, if you ask me. It's now I know they've been around much longer than that, but I'm just talking about. I remember when it was me and heads that talked about them, right? I remember listening to Conway and even playing them on a radio show before he was shot, right? Because he was dope then. So that's what I mean. They've been around for a while, but the Eminem deal really put a lot of eyes on them that weren't there before. Sometimes these cats, they don't be checking. I'm talking about other artists. They don't be checking for what's coming up that's really dope. Sometimes they wait for a cosign and then they like, oh, which is trash, but whatever, man. Here's another one. Nas, Magic 2. Now, if anyone was around on social media, on the hip hop scene, a fan of Nas, whatever, the forums, Reddit, Discord, wherever you were, when the first Magic, Nas and Hit Boy, it's for both of them, right? Nas and Hit Boy, when they dropped Magic, first of all, it was a surprise drop, right? After King's Disease 2, I think. It was like a surprise drop out of nowhere. It had the younger Nas on the cover from the Illmatic days, a photo most of us know. I think it was like a photo that was used in the Source magazine when they did their article. And it was dope. And it was more like old Nas flow than the King's Disease albums were it as a whole, right? It felt more like younger Nas, throwback Nas. So everybody was hype. I know some people feel like that's the best project. I don't, but that shows you the impact. So when there was a Magic 2 announced, and you saw the cover, and it was like another old photo of young Nas with headphones on, kind of spliced with a newer photo of older Nas with headphones on. It was like, man, he about to do it again. He did not. In fact, of the Hit Boy and Nas collaborations, this one's the worst. Now, is it the worst Nas project I've ever heard? Nah, I still say that Nostradamus wasn't good. I say that what's the other one? Kanye West Nasir was that might be Nostradamus might be better than that because at least with Nostradamus, lyrically, Nas was still there. It was just more so hooks and beat selections that dragged that album down to me. But Nasir was different. It was like, yo, it's like he's rapping off beat on these on these songs. Well, Magic 2 came really close to reminding me of that. The flows, it's the new Nas flow, and it's a lot of trap inspired beats. But with Hit Boy, he was able to sound really dope over those. But these were like the flows sound too choppy to me and sound like they were trying to retrofit them to these beats, and it just wasn't working. It wasn't enough of a pocket on this entire project. And I listened and listened and listened and listened, and I'm like, man, I hate to say it because it's just so much fun to kind of talk about Hit Boy Nas's run bars. Uh, but this is a pit stop. Magic 2 is a pit stop. So if you're wondering about these projects and whether you should dive in, obviously you should listen to it, but do not listen to it first. Listen to the history of the projects. Then you'll get there. All right. Next, AZ Truth Be Told, produced by legendary producer Buck Wild. I was highly disappointed by this. And let me tell you why. AZ's entire career, his albums have never lived up to the standard of his debut, Do or Die. Right? Trust me, there's been dope songs throughout the years, but when you go listen to the albums, it was a lot of skips for me. Then he dropped Do or Die 2, which was probably one of his better albums in a long time. But there was one thing, one pattern that I started to notice, not only on Do or Die 2, but why I didn't like some of the previous albums. Pieces of a Man was a good album too. In Asiatic. All right. Okay. Maybe I'll do a tier list. But it with Do or Die 2 just felt like almost there. I thought I really didn't like that album as much until I heard this one. That album's better than this one. You know why? Because the pattern that I started to realize was AZ kind of his rhyme style is like almost, you can call his rhyme style monotone, right? It just stays in one pocket. And sometimes that pocket doesn't match every beat. So the beat can be doing one thing and he doesn't sound off beat. He just sounds like the beat doesn't mesh well with his flow, right? To me, now let me just say this. To me, AZ's flow is best with lush sounding beats like Sugar Hill, like Life's a Bee, right? Like grooves, you know what I'm saying? Like it can't be like straight up boom bap, like Affirmative Action, right? It's a certain vibe. It's a certain More Money, More Murder. It's a certain vibe where it lets his lyrics and his flow breathe and it sounds perfect. Well, on this album, Truth Be Told, legendary producer Buck Wild, the beats are the worst part. And I think because of the beats, that theme of AZ's flow kind of being in one pocket only, that's not the same pocket as the beat, it stands out more. It makes AZ's words sound basic, right? Because AZ was always dope with the wordplay, and there's wordplay here, but some of the tracks just do not match what he's doing. And it I don't know. It was a huge disappointment for me because I was like, yo, I think this might be the one. I think this might be AZ coming back to true form. You know, he's inspired by Nas. He's only working with one producer, so the beats should be good. And they just weren't, man. They sound dated in some ways, and that's no knock on buck wild, because who knows? Maybe he gave AZ some fire and he wanted to use those. Maybe he wanted these beats. But I really think like AZ could have benefited from a different vibe, right? Like if you look at Rick Ross, Currency, there's a certain vibe to their music that feels, for lack of a better word, glamorous, I guess. I don't know. Um, but AZ is perfect over that. Quick example, Do or Die 2, he has a song with Rick Ross, and the beat is just that, and AZ sounds great. AZ sounds great on King's Disease 1. Listen to how that beat sounds. That's what he's like, a, a person at a lecture or something, that just happens to have music. I don't think they do that. That would probably defeat the purpose. But you know what I'm saying? He's like someone who's lecturing to music. He's like someone who does spoken word to music, but it's like hustler talk and slick talking, glamorous and luxurious and all of that. That's what he needs production wise. Because honestly, out of this list, I probably tried to listen to this one over and over again. And even when it starts, I just feel like I'm listening to an album from another year. Like, I don't need no trap beats in AZ, but it just sounds like it's from another year. I would love to see Hit Boy produce AZ with that kind of vibe in mind. I would love to see the Justice League, who probably has Rick Ross's dopest beats ever. Just anybody who could capture a certain vibe. How about Alchemist, right? Alchemist can sometimes get in that pocket of, here's a lush sounding track for you to float on, and AZ could float on the joint, but this one ain't it. All right. Next, Meek Mill and Rick Ross, Too Good to Be True. On this podcast, I said how hyped I was for this. I heard the lead single, Shaq and Kobe. I was like, yo, it's the right beat. They sound, in pocket. They sound good together as a group. Knowing I've liked most Meek Mill albums and I've liked most Rick Ross albums, I was like, there's no way this won't be fire. There's no way this won't be in my top 5, and I'm listening for the rest of the year, even though it just came out not that long ago. Whatever. But it was too good to be true. It's not whack. It's probably good, but I'm disappointed because it just was lacking. It was lacking the energy of Shaq and Kobe, right? Not everything had to be that, but it was just lacking in that department. Like there were songs where I was like, is this an old song? Because Meek Mill voice sounds different. He sounds younger. And I think it was. Stuff like that. And don't get me wrong. I like this album more than it seems to be talking about disappointments. But I had higher expectations for this album. Way higher. And it just didn't meet it. And I think it has a lot to do with the content, right? If you're just going to talk, money and cars and houses and crime and stuff like that, then make it a shorter album. Don't put a bunch of tracks on here. How many times we going to hear y'all say that? Rick Ross is food for you, okay? How many times, even though I don't mind it every time we talk about it, but whatever. How many times are we going to hear the same themes in each song? And if the beat isn't crazy, to me, like the Shaq and Kobe joint is, then it really falls flat because it sounds like, wow, I feel like they just went in the studio and wrote the same verse in different ways for different tracks. If you understand what I mean by that. Bars. I'm barring y'all down today. All right. But yeah. And lastly, so this artist, is one of my favorite artists. And don't get me wrong, I don't have everything. I have things I dislike about within his catalog. But I always check for his new stuff because there's always guaranteed to be enough music on there that I will like. I'm not expecting to like everything and call it a classic, but I always expect there to be enough. And that's Drake's For All the Dogs. Now, this is doubly disappointing. If that is that a word, doubly? Whatever, it is today. Uh, because not only was For All the Dogs disappointing and, quite frankly, whack. This is the whack one, y'all. But I was hyped for Scary Hours, which was a follow-up, because I usually like everything about those. And that met my expectations. But what was disappointing was the fact that he attached it to this whack album. So it's For All the Dogs, Scary Hours. You know what I'm saying? That's like when you go to a liquor store and you're like, hey, give me the high premium bourbon. Oh, we only sell them in bundles. You're going to have to get this limousine liquor also. Or you go to buy a new system like, yeah, can I get the new PS17? Oh, you only sell in bundles, GameStop. And I got to get these 3 whack games to get it. And 17 controllers. It's like that, right? Just give me the goods, okay? I didn't curse. Family podcast. Edited myself. But you know what I mean? And this is the thing, right? I wasn't a fan. I'm not a fan of 21 Savage at all. So him pairing with 21 Savage, I just bypassed that album like it didn't even exist. I don't care what song was popular. I don't care what was hot. All sound whack to me with that dude on it. So when this was coming out, I was like, oh yeah, it's going to be a lot of songs. You know what I'm saying? He probably going to get in his bag with the rapping, throw some darts. Honestly, I'm more of a fan of the sing-songy records that he makes. So I was looking forward to that. And I have never skipped this much in my life. Like just really like, skip. So disappointed. Then I had to double it back and say, you know what? Stop looking for what you want and just let it play. And I let it play. And 1 or 2 songs was like, yeah, I like this one, blah, blah, blah. The joint with J. Cole, honestly, Drake's verse was cool, but J. Cole's the star on that. It just didn't do what it was supposed to do for me. And to drop Scary Hours, which was highly anticipated for me, and honestly, I like it. But to attach it to that album where I had to take those songs off and put them on a playlist just to hear them by themselves, it is the most disappointing thing I've had to do in 2023. That's going to do it for me. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, well, X. I ain't calling it X. Twitter, Instagram, Spill, which is also on Android. I got Android phones. Don't hate. And wherever you find social media at Vegas World INC. Also know this podcast is available in audio form on your favorite podcasting app, but also in video form, where this week, instead of a gray hoodie with a Santa hat, I'm wearing a goddamn elf hat with all black on. Hoodie Vegas in the building. And please know that I am trying to get to 500 subscribers. So if you like the content you've seen on this channel, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, leave a comment. What were your most disappointing albums? Did any of the albums I mentioned disappoint you? Or did you even care? Leave your comments in the comment section. And also, probably the most important thing you could do for me, it's not Patreon. I appreciate you watching. But if you know other hip-hop heads, and other circles that you dwell in, you talk hip-hop on social media, put them onto the channel. This may not be the best video. There may be another video. Share with those who may enjoy the same kind of content that you do. All right, y'all. That's going to do it for me. Next week, will be my 2024 preview show. Until next time, I'm not a critic, I'm just a fan. Peace.
McLovin.